Welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of Hotel Talk. And today I have with us the co-founder and director of Moi Strov, which is a company based in Cyprus. His name is Alexander Papacosta, and he's also the producer at Cypress Production Services. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about his companies and how it works. And of course, we've worked together for many, many years on various projects at St. Raphael Resort. And Alexander's currently in the hotel, having had a group that he'll tell us a bit about. So it just all worked out perfectly well to do this recording today. So Alexander, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the invitation. And of course, as you said, we are here quite often on production. So it timed perfectly today.
It was perfect. It was perfect. So Alex, tell us a little bit about you. I mean, we want to hear all about Moi Strov and everything else, but let's start with you. Who are you? Where are you from? How did you end up in Cyprus? Let's go from the beginning, where you were born, and all through kind of childhood to your career.
So all through up. So I was born in the north of Sweden, and I'm half Swedish. My mother is Swedish, my father is Cypriot. So I obviously was visiting Cyprus, summer times at least. There was the 3-week summer holiday every year growing up. And then, as I finished secondary school, I started spending summers here. And then, it slowly it became more and more time. And Cyprus looked more and more attractive, But so in 2008, I moved here full-time, and quite instantly, I was working at, I was in real estate first, but I had some background work in media in Sweden, and then almost straight away, I opened the company, or I co-founded the company with my partner then, and it started out as a publishing company, so that's how we got started in Cyprus.
Mm-hmm. And you were in magazine form, weren't you?
Yeah, so that was a magazine, and that came out of an idea that it's a Russian language magazine, and it was there was a lot of English publications at the island at the time, but also there was a very, fast growing audience of Russian speakers. So there wasn't really a lot catering for them. Lifestyle wise, there was newspapers and radio and things like that. But, from a cultural point, there was nothing established. So that's where...
And I think at the time, I don't have the stats in front of me, but there were already around 20,000 Russians living here. Now we're 40,000 just in Limassol.
I think it was... definitely already 20.
Yeah.
Like the official statistics was 10, but I think there is always a backlog in Cyprus on updating our statistics here. Plus the tourism was slowly growing, because obviously I tracked it for, customer newsletters and for our media kit. And, we were going from 100, 200,000 tourists as well, of Russian speaking audience to, getting close to 1 million. So that shifted as well.
And so why Russian? I mean, obviously your co-founder was Russian and wanted that. But I mean, what is it? I mean, tell us a little bit. First of all, the name. Where did the name come from? What does the name mean? Why the Russian language? What was the pull there? And a little bit about what you needed to do in order to serve the Russian community here.
Yeah, so like I said, there was a lot of English newspapers and magazines which, focused on the lifestyle and, what you can do in Cyprus. And Russian, it became, my co-founder was Russian speaking. So it was, we just saw that there wasn't much out there. And obviously not everybody speaks Russians, and not all Russian speaking audience that was in Cyprus at the time, spoke English like well enough that they would, be able to read and understand those publications, or Greek. So we just saw that there is a gap here where you can give out this information on culture, on events, and where to go.
And a bit lifestyle, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of fashion as well. So and obviously for the shops, they liked the target group. So it made business sense as well to get into that gap. And and develop it.
I love that. And you've told me before, but what does Moi Strov mean?
So Moi Strov means my island, and that was, we were bouncing names, but we really wanted it to be something about Cyprus, but also to be really close to the reader. And, the content was really focused on how to experience Cyprus more, because when you live here, or if you're, if you're local, or even with the English, there is so much information that you can find on where to go and all the new places that opens up, because, Cyprus is always expanding with new parks, new activities, new shops and the events. But it's, there was a bit of a gap there for people to find out that information. So that's why we call it My Island, so that people would feel like more close and more connected.
I love that.
In Cyprus.
And people do feel like that. I mean, we've said this and it's come up so often on this podcast, how people with so much potential and education and the means and everything else have gone abroad, whether that was to study or work, or you lived abroad, you were born abroad, and so me as well. I mean, so many of us had the opportunities to live anywhere in the world, and yet we came back here. We came here for a reason. And I love that it's my island, because everybody who eventually lives here does really feel quite patriotic to Cyprus, even if they're not originally Cypriot. So that definitely would appeal to a lot of people. So we've spoken a little bit, because I wanted to get more into the vision behind it. There's obviously a lot of fashion in it as well as information. So first of all, I want to ask you, well, what makes a good cover? I've said this before to other people who have magazines that came here. I find it so intriguing having a marketing background. Like, what sells better? What makes people want to grab that publication? What makes a good cover? What makes a good photograph in general? I mean, you have stunning photographs. Anybody listening to this, really go check out Alexander's Instagram, or we'll put the links in the show notes.
Yeah.
They're just amazing. There was one, well, I don't know when you published it, a while ago, it freaked me out with the snake on this woman.
Yeah.
And I have a phobia with snakes, but it was absolutely memorable and just stunning. And so many breathtaking pictures, not just of models, but in just amazing locations, really highlighting Cyprus, the sea, the mountains, beautiful houses. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about that. If someone's listening and they're an amateur photographer, if they're starting a business, if they're into marketing, what makes a good cover? What makes a good photograph in general? And maybe a bit more about your vision behind Moi Strov.
So I think a good cover, it should be, it has to draw in the reader, like any visual really. Like you need to see it, and it needs to make some instant impact. Then, of course, lighting has to also match the mood that you want to communicate there, like the vibe of what's going to be inside the stories. And, of course, the cover titles matter a lot, because, you want to know instantly what information are you going to get inside. So, choosing the cover note, like the cover titles, it's also important. And I think it's always important also to keep it not overcrowded, because, it can be very tempting to try to show everything. But, you've got to leave it. You always need, in any image, you need some white space, you need some dead space, which makes the visual attractive.
Interesting, yeah. And then also you can put the text on, I guess.
Yeah, you see this always in brands that are, more speaking to a well-branded commercial, always have smaller text, smaller fonts, and more white space, so that, the image breathes a little bit. Interesting.
And I also, I remember reading about the eye contacts. A lot of the time, let's say if there's a person on the front cover, they're looking straight ahead, they're almost locking eyes with the reader.
Yeah, of course. This is, so you got to look at it, and you got to feel like it's, speaking back to you in a way.
Interesting. And in general, what makes a good photograph? How can people create good photographs?
I mean, obviously there are, some specific rules of how the photo should be composed. Like the rule of thirds and the golden. But in general, I find that you need it always to have depth. You always need the lighting to be, you know, you can tune the lighting to infinity almost. That's which, you know, you see when we working around here, that you can always keep playing with the light to make it better, you know, perfecting little shadows and little highlights, you know, so that it's just looking perfect. And I think also it's important to always make it soft, make it it's a little bit hard to summarize, to be honest, because
it's like a photography lesson suddenly here, but
but you've got to, the image has to be balanced, like well balanced, and like you said, covers, you need that eye contact, and the look also matters, like the look of the person. If it's a picture with a person, it has to have the right intensity, so catching the intensity is very important to work with. Interesting.
Photography is just fascinating, so thank you so much for sharing that with us. And your vision now for Moi Strov, and I know you've got Cypress Production Services, which comes under that umbrella. What's your vision in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see it going and developing?
Well, so we've started having, we started getting, and actually, like, maybe I can go back to the transition to that, because from the magazine, this is actually how it started. So the magazine had a lot of customers. Like we always had around 60 customers every month that we worked with, that either had a product placement or an ad page. And, you know, not everybody had an ad agency. So we kind of started consulting on the advertising. Then we started shooting the advertisings for them. Then that transitioned to video as well. Then we started shooting some international covers just because of the, you know, experience we had on location and team locally. And from that, we got more and more international jobs for service. So this is where we started working with clients like Net-a-Porter, and where we eventually turned it into servicing feature films. And as you know, we have in Cyprus now a filming, like a cash rebate for filming, which many countries have. So those tax incentives are working to bring in more feature films. It hasn't really boomed yet, but I think it can develop quite good. But in terms of TV commercials, I think it will keep growing quite a bit, because we have stable weather. We have, in a compact everything. Island, we have so much you can do.
We have archaeology, we have new buildings, we have luxury, we have traditional, we have mountains, we have sea, we have rivers. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, dams. I mean...
But it's not just the accessibility, because it's always like, we just wrapped now a 2-day shoot, and, one day was in the village, one day was in the studio. But sometimes the requirement can be, 1 day beach, 1 day mountains, 1 day forest. And there is very few locations, and especially this is why we base ourselves here and have the team staying here at San Rafael so often, because, you're in Troodos in 45 minutes. You have pine forest. You have Akrotiri, you have a desert. You have a forest that looks more like a jungle there with the eucalyptus trees. Then you have, any beach accessible within an hour. Like, even if you need to go to Nisi Beach, okay, with a bus it takes a bit longer, but you can go from white beaches to palm trees, to a jungle.
Yeah, the cliffs are very
forest.
close. Yeah.
Exactly, and you have all the different type of coastal regions, the old town, plus all the new modern buildings that, so it's such a mix, and it's so accessible, because in most countries that distance would be longer. Like, you might have a travel time of 4 or 5 hours then in order to find all the locations. But because everything is gathered in a very small place here, it just works. And I think that's why Cyprus will keep growing with commercials and with smaller feature films, hopefully bigger ones as well.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I know we had Nicolas Cage here a few years ago. He wasn't staying here, but William Baldwin stayed here, and Julian Sands stayed in our hotel, and 2 movies were done here. So, yeah, we really hope that more and more will come of that. So tell us a bit about your interesting clients. I mean, you mentioned Net-a-Porter now. You mentioned, you've had some really interesting names come to Cyprus. Maybe not known always to Cypriots, but I mean, now you just had a very well-known lady from...
Yeah, so we had Magdalena Cileska, who's, you know, one of the biggest actresses in Poland. Part of this team was also in the last one we did in March, when it was Marcin Prokop, which he's also, you know, one of, like, in every morning show in Poland. So again, these are some of the biggest stars there, but, you know, that audience is more than 40 million people. So
so it's great
interesting.
to have them
And of course, with, you know, the fashion shoots, we've done GQ. We just did Vogue Italy as well last week. Harper's Bazaar, and a lot of big modeling names have come for those. So we have had Barafaeli. We just had one with Vanessa Moody, who is, let's say, you know, very known in modeling world. You know, we're talking like, you know, 5, 6, 7 Vogue covers, opening most of the major brands' fashion shows as well on the Fashion Week. So a lot of big names come through Cyprus for these productions.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting because, you know, you meet new people all the time. And again, the island has a lot to offer and everybody likes it. So,
yeah, when they
you know,
come.
once they've done one production here, like with this Polish team, the last one that came here, it was in March. We had a request also for April, which, you know, worked out better to do, you know, back in Poland. But then again, we're only in June and we already have a second one, so...
That's amazing. I love it. And I agree. We have so much to offer here in Cyprus, and I'm so happy that there's companies like you offering the services you do and then bringing more people in turn, turning that wheel to create more and more awareness for our island. So I think it's fantastic. Tell us a favorite quote.
So I was thinking about this, and I wrote down 2 here that I think, like, for me personally, when it comes to business and work, like general life and work, they work best. So the number one for me is there is little success without laughter. And that's from Andrew Carnegie. And that's, you know, in this job, you work so hard. The hours are long. You know, we shoot 16 hours sometimes. But as long as you can keep it light and you can have a little bit of fun between, especially like between the busy days when you shoot, I think this is key, because otherwise it's just business all the time. So really, like, balancing it and just having fun while working, between work. I think that makes the most life success, because I feel like a lot of people just work, but they forgot the fun in between. And another one is, just so I quote it correct, strive not to be successful, but to be of value. And this, I don't actually have the persons from the quote, because it's just a quote I remembered and I wrote down. But I think, especially in a business like this, it's really the value that you provide that matters. Because, like, always, if you can provide the value, the success follows.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's, so deep, so profound, and so true. And I definitely am going to hold that, for me personally, close, because I didn't know either of those quotes. But I do often say about laughter, you've got to have humour in life, and you've got to just let things go and just enjoy it all. And I think too many people take things too seriously. And I can only imagine in your world how seriously some people take those photographs, those days, that shoot, that advert, whatever it is, and then lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, you got to create the end product always. And, you know, you're always on a deadline. And this goes, you know, that was in publishing, you know, that's the same with the magazine and the same with the productions. Like, the end product has to happen. Like, you know, it has to be done. But you got to make the process fun, because it's too hard work, you know, not to enjoy it in the process. You know, when you're working an 18-hour shoot in July, you know, dragging heavy equipment around the set and, you know, having to make sure everybody is on time. You got to take everything light, but also make sure the job gets done. So that's the way to do it.
Bonus question.
Bonus question. Let's go.
From the Crystal Bowl.
So this is...
There you go. Let's see.
Your team's favorite bonus questions?
Yes. Well, let's see who asked what. Sometimes they say actually on it who it is, but not this one. What is the hardest challenge you have had to overcome in your life?
The hardest challenge?
Mm-hmm.
Quite recently I got divorced, so that was, a little bit, that was a bit of a challenge, like a personal challenge, because I have a child and, ideally I didn't want the situation to go there. But, in the end, we worked all of that out and I think it transitioned really good and, she's doing great. So for a family life or something personal, I think is that.
Well, they say, don't they, divorce is one of the 3 hardest things that someone may have to do in their life. I think the other is moving house, and then obviously if someone passes. But yeah, those are quite traumatic experiences because your life changes. So something that has to be wrapped up and left behind, and then you have to create something new and a new vision.
I think it's more that you get into a certain way of living. And if you set that in your life, in your mind, like changing it in the beginning, it's just like, it takes some time before you work through that. But then, there is the new normal after, and the new normal always comes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another favorite quote of mine. Happiness waits for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So even when you're going through tough times and challenging times, you know that if you overcome it, the sky's the limit. You've done that. You've done the hardest thing you had to do, and now everything else. And a lot of people become, I don't want to say more risk prone after difficult times, but if they've been through like very tough times, and I think they just view life differently and are more open to the
definitely
next stage.
It turns you like to being more open, and maybe I feel at least it makes you more open and more like more relaxed a little bit. Less things affect you once you've processed through something which is a big challenge, but so life is continuing on easier in a way.
Life is beautiful.
But another top like business difficulties, I feel like we haven't really had something really hard. It's
knock on
sort
wood.
of in a the same level all the time.
I'm so happy to hear that. That's great. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for sharing some of your experiences, not just at St. Raphael Resort, but on our beautiful island, and telling us a little bit about you and what you do. As I said before, all your links are going to be put in the show notes, so anybody can follow you and find out more about your company. And we wish you every success, and keep using St. Raphael Resort because we're always here to support you.
So I would just like to add that, it's really great working with you at St. Raphael's, and, you've always been really helpful. I mean, not just for our projects, but I know for all the industry in Cyprus, of helping to serve, finding solutions. And I find that it's been like, it's always so practical to work here, like the location, the service of the staff, the accessibility of, the conference room, straight to vans. So I think you guys are doing a great job, and I hope that you will keep serving, and help us in the film industry out to keep going as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words. And we do. I've always tried to support new industries as well, and things that are good for Cyprus as a whole. So not just for St. Raphael Resort and not just for the bottom line, whether that's a famous DJ that comes and needs a room, or whether it's a young business or a new employee or whatever. However I can help, I've always tried, as you said, to be of service in one way or another. So it means a lot for you to mention that and for your kind, supportive words.
And I'm always when I mention about the hotel and about you to customers, I always also add that bit, because I think it's quite impressive that you also you opened the restaurant down at Golden Monkey, and I know you went through and like really pinned the menu down all by yourself. you've got the book as well on Amazon, and you know all these things that you have going on, plus you know the hotel talk. So how do you find time actually?
It comes up actually quite a lot in my life. People ask, and yeah, there's no easy answer to that. I think so what you do, just love what you do. You know, I think we're all superheroes one way or another, and everyone's doing their best. And I'm quite hyper, so that definitely does help. And I don't like being bored, although I welcome being bored because then it makes me more creative.
Yeah.
And I really just try and utilize every minute of the day. I don't think I have, even if I'm quiet for a few minutes, in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm allowing that time so that then I can boost to do something else with it, or find something else to fit in or slot in, or different ideas. So that's my kind of 60-second hack. If you close your eyes for 60 seconds and get someone to time you and do nothing, you'll realize how long
60
seconds
is,
is and how much you could do. And then you'll open your eyes and be like, oh, I could have written an email at that time. I could have hugged my child in that time. I could have, downloaded something that I've been meaning to do. I could have written a review for a friend that's been asking that. I could have whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you're like, goodness, I have 60 of those in an hour.
Yeah.
And then I have,
24 of those.
24 of those in a day. And then it just all kind of makes sense. And you're like, no, I can do that. So yeah, I find it the opposite when I was tell someone, like when my book came out, or when, I don't know, different things have happened or I've launched. And I'm like, oh, guys, can you just log on, or can you like that post? And then very dear friends will say like, oh, I didn't have time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, that's a 10-second job.
Yeah, exactly.
But for many people, I get it. And I'm not criticizing. It's just overwhelming. But for me, I just always try and be like, right. And I do things and I try and stay focused on that thing I'm doing. Like now I'm with you, I'm talking to you. My phone's on silent.
Yeah.
Like I do my WhatsApps in the morning and the evening with friends, and then I will just scan it over for important work stuff. And you can't be everywhere all the time.
You can't be on it all the time, because then you're constantly distracted. But so for the 60 second, do you close your eyes and you count it, or?
Yeah, so it's just it's more of a reminder. We can do it now, but I can just advise the listeners and you. I mean, literally just get someone to literally time you, get your phone out, put your stopwatch on. So you put a
timer 60 seconds and...
I do it at dinner parties sometimes when people say, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, well, you want to play a game? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, just 1 minute, close your eyes at this dinner, don't talk, don't say anything. Everybody's talking around you. And they're like, okay. And you can see them.
Yeah,
and I'm like, just silent, 60 seconds. And because it's a long time.
Yeah.
And then when they open their eyes, I'm like, well, that's what I remember all the time and how much I can do.
So you remind yourself about that feeling of when you're closing your eyes and you're not doing anything or you're not moving, obviously all the thoughts pass through your head of things you could do. So that's how you gather up the momentum. The momentum of what you could have used the time for.
And it's not just to write the email or write a blog or whatever it might be. It's also to be present. So those 60 seconds, if your kid is drawing something and saying, oh, mummy or daddy, look, and you're like, oh, I've really got to leave. But then you're like, actually, no, I'll sit with you for 1 minute.
Yeah.
60 seconds. That's not going to make any difference on your journey to work.
Yeah, for sure.
But for that child, those 60 seconds of saying, let me just, wow, why did you use yellow? Like, what an interesting, color. And I'm just saying that only took me 2 seconds. Imagine 60 and then really then saying, I'm so proud of you, a kiss, a quick cuddle, and now mummy's got to go to work. Now daddy's got to go to work. And then that 1 minute, which is nothing in your day, is everything to that one person. Yeah. So, you can do a lot with all those minutes.
Yeah. I'll keep it in mind.
There you go.
I'm definitely going to try that. Daily for a while until I have it in the back of my head.
Yeah, until I have it in the back of your head. But don't forget, you can also do it with meditation. So it's not always just to think what you're going to do. It's like to just be present and be there and relax and enjoy life. And as you said, I love it. Have humor.
Yeah.
Everything. We need laughter and everything.
Always.
Thank you so much, Alex. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for asking me a question too.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it is a podcast, so I think it's good with a bit of two ways. But thank you.
Thank you. All the best.